You ever get into a petty argument at breakfast? Petty as in, what's better, pancakes or waffles? The correct answer is waffles, of course. From there, let's call it a disagreement starts to ensue and becomes so heated you start gathering the history of pancakes, you start making some bullet points and gathering historical sources just to win an argument. Ever do that? No? Just me? As you guess, by the title of today's episode, it'll be about the surprising history of pancakes of all things. I started off from going down the rabbit hole to win an argument, which somehow turned me into learning about a piece of food that is not just enjoyed by millions, but as an item that has helped save human lives. Now, me being a waffle guy, I was surprised. Just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the major impact pancakes has had on the human condition. And against my better judgment, I will tell you about pancakes instead of waffles, even though everyone knows waffles are better, and how pancakes helped humans conquer the world, change economies, and unite people. The beginning of pancakes is a bit of a gray area. It is open for interpretation for sure. So stay with me. It starts hundreds of thousands of years ago, if not farther, when mankind still lived in caves. Agriculture was yet to be invented, but that didn't stop our ancestors from being chefs. Around 780,000 years ago, Homo erectus, precursor to Homo sapiens, began to cook fish in the Jordan Valley. We know this from finding burnt fish samples. Along with finding those burnt fish samples, they also found some burnt grain. I know, it's a stretch. A humanoid in a cave having cooked fish and burnt grain, that's a far assumption to be saying that they were cooking pancakes. But hear me out. There is a chance that, yeah, it was actually pancakes. First off, even if it wasn't pancakes, it'd at least be the precursor to what would become pancakes. And if you're cooking fish, I imagine it couldn't be too much farther in time until cooking grain was discovered, and cooking it in different ways. Hotcakes, pancakes, they aren't exactly rocket science to make. And what we do know for certain, in the same generic geographic region, in now modern times northern Iraq, scientists have found caves that were inhabited by Neanderthals some 30,000 to 70,000 years ago. And evidence shows that these Neanderthals were grinding seed into flour and making a type of flatbread. Not only that, but there's evidence to show that they were soaking and pounding the seeds before grinding them. A monkey see, monkey do situation here for humans? Because the actual definition of a pancake is a flat cake that is made of thin batter and cooked on both sides. Simple, and with that definition in mind, it sounds like the Neanderthals made a pancake-like thing. But what about actual humans? We've talked about their precursors to humans and humanoids, aka the Neanderthals, but when did full-blooded humans have pancakes? The exact date? Uncertain. But luckily we have a rough estimate, so don't lose hope. Which brings us to the caveman frozen in time, Otzi. Otzi was a man found in ice who died around 5,300 years ago. Apparently, what happened is that Otzi was a nomad who was traveling across the Otzol Alps, which is in the Italian-Austrian border. Somewhere along the journey, Otzi got into a fight with another human, even having an arrowhead in his shoulder. And based on researching his corpse, he had also been sick months before. Now Otzi, in the Alps, sick, wounded, freezing, just dying in a multitude of ways. He decided to have a last meal, the last of his food. And thanks to the ice, we know exactly what he ate because the contents of his stomach were frozen in time. His last meal was red deer and ibex meat, along with in-corn wheat. The wheat, based off its process, was made into a flatbread, a hotcake of some kind. So in other words, he had a pancake. Honestly, for ancient times, as last meals go, actually doesn't sound that bad. Meat and pancakes. Now you may be asking yourself, is flatbread a pancake? Because like me, I used to have them different in my head. And the answer, well, yes and no at the same time. Like many things, how you define something, in this case pancakes of all things, changes from when it was invented and changes depending on the time period. In doing research over the years on history and science, I've learned that there's a lot open to interpretation. If you define it by specific ingredients, like having baking soda, it'll be a while in human history before pancakes are invented. But if you classify pancakes like I do, a grain batter cooked with other things, like things that can be in it, then yeah. At this time, a flatbread is a pancake. And think about how many different types of pancakes there are. Like look at crepes. Don't have ingredients that other pancakes do, but I'll definitely say a crepe is a type of pancake. So depending on the flatbread and the era, yeah, I'm calling it a pancake. From there, agriculture is invented, and pretty widespread. And boy, do we start cooking. Pun definitely intended. We end up in ancient Egypt, where things are kind of controversial on the pancakes again. In the modern era, we think of pancakes as cheap and easy meal to have, but for the ancient Egyptians, apparently, it was a meal fit for a king. Around 2000 BC, a pharaoh had a pancake-like item carved as hieroglyphics in his tomb. Again, not exactly like a pancake of modern era. Historians believe it to be a flat oatmeal cake. Based on other hieroglyphics, the process depicted, I'm calling it a pancake. The hieroglyphics even depict the process in which these flatbread pancake was made, with the grinding of grain, cooking in clay ovens, and it wasn't just one pharaoh. Multiple pharaohs, multiple hieroglyphics have been found depicting pancakes. Even in King Tut's tomb, there's evidence of a pancake. From there, the favorite meal of the pharaohs lived on and made its way to Greece, where in around 600 BC, we have the Greek poets Cranacius and Magnes writing about a warm dish known as teganites, which is basically a pancake. By the 1st century AD, the teganites that the Greeks had taken the Roman world by storm, spreading all over its empire. In the Roman world, a Roman merchant by the name of Marcus Gavius Apicius, who loved food to the extreme, would provide himself as a muse for chefs, and in turn, a pancake recipe. Apicius was alive in the 1st century and was a foodaholic and just hedonistic overall in nature. So much so, he spent 100 million centari on his kitchen alone. For those wondering, 100 million centari in the 1st century in the modern US dollar is somewhere between 500 million to $2 billion. Yeah, and he spent that on his kitchen. Needless to say, he was a food nut and get a book named after him. The book, De Re Conquera, The Art of Cooking, but at the time and still today is most likely called Apicius, named after that merchant who spent so much money on food. This book, The Art of Cooking, was written after his death a few centuries later in the 4th century AD. The book would contain over 400 recipes, and can you guess one of the recipes? That's right, pancakes. But even before the book was finished, other places around the world had their own version of pancakes. Again, the definition of what a pancake is surprisingly very loose, especially from country to country. Around the 1st century AD in India, they had the first written account of dosa, which is a thin crepe made from rice and white lentils. Farther east of India, in what is modern-day China, a century later, a different type of pancake came to be. This pancake is called Bing and originates from the Jiangping region. And the story of this pancake goes like this. Sometime during the Three Kingdoms period, which ranges when the story was written 220 to 280 AD, was written about a general having an egg and wheat-based pancake. You see, 100 years earlier, a general, Zhuge Lung, instructed the chefs to put eggs in their version of pancakes, which at the time was just wheat-based, so that his soldiers would be healthier and better fighters. And all the way to the modern day, because of this, Bing pancakes now have egg in them. Now, there's no actual evidence for this except for a story, but it's a fun story nonetheless. Then, by 500 AD, pancakes were everywhere, in tons of different forms, shapes, sizes, and ingredients. Pancakes, through and through, were and are universal, even if they aren't exactly the same. People were now experimenting more with pancakes and different cooking methods, and sometime around the 9th century, waffles would first be made. Which was a disappointment to me when arguing about waffles and pancakes, for waffles are basically pancakes, just cooked in a different way, which could be said about many types of pancakes. It's just more so that I like winning arguments, and this did not help my side. Anyhow, pancakes were and are loved by everyone, every social class, rich and poor, and everything in between, from emperors in China to kings in England, from peasants to merchants. Everyone, for all of history, has loved pancakes. I mean, even Shakespeare mentions pancakes in one of his plays. And you want to take a guess on what Europeans saw some Native Americans eating when they started coming over to North America? Yep, pancakes. Native Americans had their own type of pancakes, nicknamed by the Europeans as Johnny cakes or journey cakes, or sometimes known as Indian slapjacks. made with cornmeal and traditionally eaten without sweeteners. Sweeteners like maple syrup, which I found surprising. For those who don't know, maple syrup is indigenous to North America and has been collected for centuries by the Native Americans. First written account from an outsider of maple syrup collection would be Jocoa Carter in 1534. Despite maple syrup being around for so long, it would be a while before it would become a staple with pancakes. In fact, it wouldn't be until the mid-1800s when maple syrup on pancakes would become commonplace. That would first be featured in a published literature in a cookbook called The Housekeeper's Assistant. Though, backtracking a bit before we enter the 1800s, because the Industrial Revolution would change, well, everything, including pancakes, we have to talk about toppings. As it goes for toppings for pancakes before maple syrup, it's actually been pretty consistent over the ages and across cultures. Some of the earliest toppings being honey, nuts, and cheese. Common food items for basically most civilization. Another one would be spices, but spices just vary from region to region. One topping you would have guessed would have been much earlier, but didn't come around till the medieval ages, of all things would be butter. I know you would have guessed that butter would have been one of the most earliest toppings, but nope. Though once butter became a common commodity in the medieval ages, butter and pancakes would quickly become two peas in a pod. They'd be like peanut butter and jelly, synonymous. And quickly become synonymous with Christian Lent as well. As Christianity was expanding throughout Europe and the rest of the world, so too were the traditions and practices. One of them being Lent, which is a 40-day fasting and prayer period. And if you know you're about to go into a fasting period, you are not going to eat for a while, and you know some of your food will go bad, you kind of eat everything you can. A popular dish for this would be, that's right, pancakes. And somewhere along the line, people started adding butter to them. The day of eating before Lent is called Shrove Tuesday, but due to how many people ate pancakes before the fasting, it quickly got the nickname Pancake Day, which is still practiced today, and pancakes are still eaten for today. There are other stories on how Shrove Tuesday got the nickname Pancake Day, including a woman carrying a hot pan containing a pancake, which happened in 1445. Which, funny enough, was turned into a race, one still held annually after all these centuries. Pancake Day isn't the only thing to come from England in with pancakes. The phrase flat as a pancake first appears in 1611 and is used the same way it is today as it was back then, to describe really flat things. And that's not the only story and culture change pancakes have influenced. In Norway, there is a children's tale about a pancake that got away, called, with great effort in the title, The Runaway Pancake. It is basically the gingerbread man story, but with a pancake. Now, perhaps no other European group has had a bigger impact on pancakes than the Dutch. The Dutch pancake is called Groningen, after the city, would be finalized in recipe sometime in the 1600s, and would be no different than the modern American pancake, other than lacking the baking soda, which had yet to be invented. And as many Dutch relocated to America, they brought their pancake recipes with them. The recipes would flourish in the New World. By the late 1700s, pancakes were selling like hotcakes. See what I did there? So much so that Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers, would be enthralled with pancakes, which started when eating a type of crepe while in France. He loved it so much, he asked for the recipe and then sent the recipe to the White House. Now, in early America, they had their own version of a pancake called griddle cakes, but Jefferson loved this new pancake so much, he was like, no. This one. This is the pancake. Which, from the best I could find, was a thicker crepe mixed with a Dutch-like pancake. Then the 1800s come forth, which bring the Industrial Revolution, which changes, well, everything. In the mid-1800s, baking soda was for the first time commercially available, which was quickly added to pancakes, and everyone was excited. It seems like any pancake fad or improvement is met by humanity with open arms. And then by the late 1800s, sugar and maple syrup was cheap enough for the average person to purchase, which gave people the opportunity to put maple syrup on pancakes, as well as allowing companies to form around supplying pancakes with maple syrup. The maple syrup titan soon formed called Aunt Jemima, which, in America, solidified putting maple syrup on pancakes. The Industrial Revolution that brought baking soda and bottled maple syrup, and also brought the rise of massive factories, which meant more workers needing an easy, energy-giving breakfast food. So, factory workers turned to, pancakes, which caused pancakes to go from eat any time of day food to more of, this is just a breakfast food. Then by 1889, the first instant pancake mix was introduced by none other than Aunt Jemima again, which opened the floodgates for the pancake industry. More cookbooks, restaurants, advertisement, pancake making equipment, the list goes on, and just continues to grow to this day. By the mid-20th century, the entire world has pancakes in some shape or form, whether it comes from a box or an ancient tradition recipe. And pancake evolution hasn't stopped in the 21st century either. 3D printers are now printing pancakes. People are still making gadgets and gizmos for pancakes. Games, races, contests, movie tropes. Pancakes are so ingrained in human society, it's hard to imagine a world without them. Hell, pancakes may be part of human DNA, just ingrained in us. Pancakes have been around for so long, our ancestors' ancestors were eating forms of pancakes. And though what a pancake is has changed over the years, and comes and goes in many different forms around the world, the love of them hasn't wavered in humanity. And now with all this knowledge gained on pancakes, the knowledge on how important they are, and how important they've been to humans, how beloved pancakes are by everyone, I still say waffles are better. So let me know in the comments which one do you prefer, waffles or pancakes? Or give me your favorite pancake recipe. And as always, thank you all for listening.